So we'll wait for our participants to start coming in. Well, yep, we've got them. There they are. They're coming in. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining us. We're excited about our program this evening to help us really kick off the election season with some important things that you need to know about this election. All right, so my name is Heidi Graham, and I will take off my vote mask now because I don't need it inside. But if you would like your own vote mask, you can go to our website at www.lwvah.org. And if you scroll down, there's a button that says shop, and you can get your own vote mask. We have them in white, in black, and we also have one in the suffrage colors of purple and yellow. And so I'm really excited to be here. League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization whose whole mission is to support democracy, to empower voters and defend democracy. We are a 100-year-old organization, and though the word women is in our title, we are open to all genders, all gender identities, all ethnicities, all ages. We are one of the few leagues in the country that does not have an age limit on our membership. If you're interested in more about League, please go to our website at www.lwvah.org and check us out. There's a place there to become a member, and we'd love to have you. So, our league does cover all of High School District 214. Our official name is the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, and Buffalo Grove, including Elk Grove Village, Prospect Heights, and Wheeling. But my shorthand is all of the communities that feed into High School District 214 we service. We do quite a lot in the schools, not just in 214, but in all the elementary schools as well. So we work really hard to get people out to vote. So tonight, I'm really excited to have Richard K. Means. Rich, he is an election lawyer with offices in Oak Park. He has served as an attorney in state, county, and city government for 16 years. He has been in private practice for 37 years. Long involved in civic activities, Mr. Means is currently the Illinois chapter chair of the Liberal Americans for Democratic Action and is a past state chairman of Independent Voters of Illinois. He has served several bar associations as an author and lecturer. Mr. Means is twice past chairman of the CBA Election Law Committee and the past executive director of the Chicago Council of Lawyers. So, you know, he doesn't have enough on his plate, is what I'm figuring here. Mr. Means earned his JD degree from Northwestern University, Pritzker School of Law, and did additional studies in political science and sociology at the University of Stockholm in Sweden. We are very pleased to have Mr. Means here tonight to talk to us about the 10 things that we need to be aware of this election cycle. And so now I'm going to turn this over to Rich. I'll turn off my camera and mute myself. And then at the end of the program, if you have any questions, just put them up in Q&A and I'll come back on and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with everybody. I hope I can remain nonpartisan. I will do my very best. But if I stray, please call me on it in the Q&A. We'll have Q&A afterwards. I'm a specialist, I guess you'd say, in elections. I've been doing it the better part of 53 years. And I'm glad the league doesn't have an age limit because I might be too old. But in any case, let me talk about what I think are the top 10 things that you need to know and do about the election on November 3. I emphasize the and do part because there are lots of things that you can do if you wish. Loads of things. So let me get into it. I'll first go through just to give you the top 10. And Heidi does have an outline of my presentation, but you may get an entirely too much of me just with the speech. But anyway, let me begin. The first thing I think you need to prepare yourself for voting. Plan your vote. And there's several ways you can do it. Number 2, you need to check your registration, get a specimen ballot so you know who your choices are. Third thing is to support voter registration efforts. The league chapters all over the country spend a lot of time with voter registration, and some people think that it is somehow a symbol of being a partisan, but it's not. Everybody has got a right to vote, including the people who believe the very opposite of how you personally believe. There's a lot of controversy now. So number 4 is understand the limits of executive powers. What does the president have a right to do? What does the governor have a right to do? What do election boards have a right to do? Be an activist, number 5. Decide who you favor, support them, work on them to win. Number 6, if you can, if COVID doesn't prevent you, be an election judge. Very important. I'll get into that later. Number 7, learn how the process works so that you can educate others. Number 8, controversial. What happens with a contested election? Study up on that because that's important. It might happen. It happened in 2020 and it might happen again. Now, number 9 is if you think the system is bad or deficient in any way, figure out how you would like to reform it. And number 10, I have resources for further study. I've been studying this since I was a young boy. My parents were political. I became political. There's a lot to know. There's a lot of ways to serve your community. So let me begin. Prepare yourself to vote. There are basically 3 ways to vote. There's early voting in an early voting polling place starting in the middle of October. Oh, and by the way, some of the dates that I'm giving you here are the dates that we have in Illinois, and particularly in suburban Cook County. Other places will be similar, but not exactly the same. So there's early voting. There's voting by mail. Some people call it absentee, but now you don't need to be absent from the county. You don't need to have a medical condition that prevents you from going to the polling place. No excuse. Voting by mail is an option for everyone. Number 3, you can vote in your polling place on November 3. Now, we've had a lot of controversy. It is said, and we don't know for sure if it's true, but it's said that Republicans are going to vote in their polling places and Democrats are going to vote by mail. And they haven't done a survey about early voting. What people fear is that on November 3, late in the evening, there is going to appear to be a winner, but that is only of the votes already counted. Late in the evening is when we're going to begin to see the vote by mail ballots, but they will come trickling in depending on how fast the post office is. They will come trickling in Illinois as late as November 18. And if they were postmarked by the November 3 election day, or they are marked by the voter, and when the voter signs the carrier envelope, they will be counted up to November 18. Well, as you can imagine, if it's really true that Republicans are going to vote in the polling places on election day and Democrats are more often going to vote by mail, we may see what some people call a red mirage, that it looks like this is going to be a red or Republican election. And then after that, we may see what people have called the blue shift. And all of a sudden, Democratic votes are going to be coming in. One of the ways that you can prevent the controversy over the results apparently changing from November 3 on to a later time, is to vote early or vote in your polling place on election day. Now, COVID may not allow you to do either of those. I can't go into a polling place because I've got a COVID target on my back. And so I just sit here in my office and I am voting by mail. But if you can go in to early voting or vote in the polling place on election day, your vote will be reflected in that immediate vote late on Tuesday night, November 3. And one way to stop the controversy of the result appearing to change is to vote early or vote in the polling place. But of course, it's most important that you vote, whichever way it is that you do vote. And early voting is really a viable option. Most of the people on this Zoom call live in suburban Cook County, and you will be able to vote early voting downtown at 69 West Washington at the county clerk's office, in Maybrook, perhaps in some of the other courthouses, but in village halls all over the county. They haven't arranged for all of them yet. They haven't published a complete list. But early voting this year is different than it's been in the past. Always in the past, you have been able to go to any early voting place in the county because they have an electronic poll book that allows them to look up every voter in the county and see whether that voter has been sent an absentee or vote by mail ballot, whether that voter's already voted early. They will be able to look that up, and they'll also have the signature. And because they have the signature, you don't need voter ID. You sign a ballot application, they compare the signature. Anywhere in Cook County, you can vote. And this year, different from the past, it's all the way through 7 o'clock on election day, November 3. So you can vote on election day in any place in Cook County that is an early voting center. You can, of course, vote by mail. And when you vote by mail, you have a couple of alternatives. You get your ballot by mail. I applied back in the summer. You can apply anytime up to a week before the election, and your ballot will be mailed out. They're starting to mail the ballots out on September 24. And so that's pretty soon. That's in a week. And so people will have their ballots right away. If you know who your choices are, you know that you want to stick with the choices regardless of any news that might happen between now and November 3, you could mail it back. Starting on October 14th, when early voting starts, instead of trusting the US mail, you can put it in a drop box, and there will be a drop box at every early voting polling place throughout the county. So you don't need to rely on the US mail. If you're leery because of some of the news you've heard about the mail, get your ballot by the mail, prepare to mark it, and then put it in the drop box yourself, and you know that it will be counted the minute ballots are permitted to be counted on election day, starting at 7 o'clock. They count the absentee or the vote by mail ballots within 2 days of when you put it in the drop box or when it arrives back by mail at the county clerk's office. They need to process it to qualify it, because if you fail to put your signature on it, they have to tell you and you have to provide that signature. If you fail to put a date on it and there is no postmark, that will bounce back and you're going to need to fix it. So when you have an absentee ballot, vote it any way you like, skip offices if you want, But be sure when you put it in that outer envelope to sign the outer envelope, the oath that you're entitled to vote and that this is your vote, and then date it. If somebody else delivers it to the drop box, sign the form on the outer envelope authorizing somebody else to drop it off for you. So there are ways, all these different ways that we have to vote. In the polling place, we don't know yet how many elections judges will be available. We know that because of COVID and because many of the election judges are seniors, they're going to beg off. In Milwaukee in April, there were supposed to be 300 polling places. There were only 5 because they only had enough election officials to man or support those polling places, those 5 polling places. So be sure you know where your polling place is. Be sure you know, check before you go to vote to be sure that the polling place hasn't moved. Frequently, they consolidate polling places. Frequently, they are in a high school gym or a grade school gym, and there are 5 precincts there in voting in the gym. There are a lot of places that had volunteered to be polling places before. In the time of COVID, they're saying, sorry, we can't risk it. Or they're in businesses which, because of COVID, have closed. So check where your polling place is. At the same time, you check your voter registration. Now, you go on, you're all on the web now, so you know how to do it. Go to the Cook County Clerk's office, Karen Yarborough, if you're a suburbanite, and look up your voter information. You should be there, and if you are not there, it means that you need to re-register. Now, their address system is a little odd, and so you got to look very carefully at the form, but you should see yourself registered, and if you're not, you know somehow you fell off and you need to re-register. Now, the good thing about re-registering is that you can do it online, you can do it by mail, you can do it at any early voting place, and on election day, you can do it at the polling place. Nobody is worried any longer about voter fraud at the polling place. It happens as frequently as people get struck by lightning. Now, way back when, I was a prosecutor, I was head of the election unit at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. I prosecuted 107 people, rather got convictions. There were a couple of acquittals there, or hung juries, but I got convictions against 107 different people. and they were felonies, and election fraud happened back then. It doesn't happen much anymore. People have learned that if you do it, you're going to get caught, and people look after the election. And so it isn't likely to happen. So we have election day registration in the polling place. Now, if you vote twice, you're going to have a problem. You are going to be prosecuted. So don't do that, no matter who it is that tells you to try to do that. Don't do that. But check your voter registration. While you're checking your voter registration, you will be able to see your specimen ballot, the offices that will appear on your ballot when you walk into that voting booth on election day. You can take the specimen ballot with you. You can take a Democratic or a Republican or an independent or any kind of newspaper endorsements. You can take things like that with you into the polling place. And I always do, because there are a lot of people on the ballot, and there are judges on the ballot who work very hard, and they're entitled to your consideration. There are judges that are on the ballot and need to be retained. They have to have a 60% yes vote in order to continue in office. There's a big controversy now. The Democratic Party has pulled its recommendation from Judge Mike Tooman, and you may have seen this big Sun-Times story about it this morning, that all of the other judges got together and endorsed Mike because he's an independent judge. He has lost recommendations because he was independent. He appointed a special prosecutor to overlook the Cashman investigation that dealt with the Daley family. He was an independent judge when he appointed Dan Webb again to look over the Jesse Smollett prosecution that I think, and Dan Webb said, that Tim Fox bungled as a state's attorney. I think she's a good state's attorney, but she sure bungled that one. So Mike Tooman is on the ballot, and you may want to vote for him, even if a party says you shouldn't. Judges are really important. As of September 15, look at the website, voteforjudges.org, because that lists the ratings of all of the different bar associations that interview and rate judges. And you'll be able, by looking that over, to decide for yourself which judges you want to support and which judges you want to retire. There are judges running against each other, Republicans against Democrats. These are important races. Way back when, in 1974, I ran for judge, And the people of the city of Chicago had the wisdom not to choose me. But in any case, it's important. When I walk into a courtroom, I don't want to see a precinct captain with robes on. When I walk into a courtroom, I don't want to see a judge bouncing up and down on the bench like he's a kangaroo, because I want a fair trial. I don't want anybody biased in favor of my client. I want a fair trial. And by looking carefully, choosing these judges, you will be able to help promote that. Let's talk about voter registration. This is something that's been important to the league for many, many years. People have got a right to vote. In some places, in some states, not Illinois, but in some places, in some states, it's really hard to get registered. Particular communities, particular ethnicities, particular social economic classes have a great deal of trouble getting registered. If you can support voter registration, you can do it in Illinois. You can do it in other states. There are lots of programs to send postcards, to urge people to get registered to vote, to come out to vote on election day. There are things you can do from home. There's phone banking that you can do. So support voter registration. It's important with the current controversy over who's going to be elected president and what might happen if the election is close. Understand the executive powers. The elections are done by the states, and indeed by 8,000 some local boards of elections, county clerks, and secretaries of state. The president does not have the authority to suspend the election, to delay the election. Now, when I say does not have the authority, that is my studied view of what the law provides. That does not mean he isn't going to try something that may be out of his authority, but understand what the authority is. Be an activist. Decide who you favor and then back them. Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green, Kanye West, although I just filed or am filing tonight, after we're done with this presentation, I'm filing a campaign finance complaint against Kanye West for not reporting all of his contributions. But anyway, support your favorite candidate, contribute money, go door to door if COVID permits, go to another state, a swing state if COVID permits. Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan are all nearby, and they are swing states. They need people to help them go one way or the other. The election will be close, and so activists can make a difference. You can join a phone bank to get out the vote. and to promote registration. You can join postcard addressing campaigns or letter writing campaigns. Here at home, something that's really important and is going to be a close election and is endorsed by the league is the fair tax, allowing the state of Illinois to have a graduated income tax. This is not a political issue. This is a justice issue. The real question is, should a poor person have to pay in taxes the same amount, the same proportion of his income as a millionaire? Now, most people don't think that they should. Most people think this is a justice issue. There is nothing new about the graduated income tax. We had it during the American Civil War. Some of the old fogies in Illinois, maybe like me, but 150 years ago, passed the Illinois Constitution of 1870, and they required a flat tax. I've been working on this since 1967 because we called for a new constitutional convention, and one of the many reasons was that we had to have the flat tax for an income tax, and we wanted the legislature and the governor to be able to impose a graduated income tax. Now, the fact that they have the power to do that does not mean that we're going to have new taxes. It means we're going to have reconfigured taxes, and the governor has proposed this fair tax schedule, and you can read about it and you can understand it and decide what you want to do about it. The league has decided that it's a justice issue and the league members should support it. All of these judges on the bottom of the ballot are running either against somebody or against their own record to stay in office. They deserve your consideration. It's important that we have independent judges and really good quality judges and not precinct captains with robes on. You can do something else this fall. People haven't been talking much about it, but municipal offices, mayor, village president, township supervisor, there are a whole lot of people who are going to be elected to run your localities the first Tuesday in April, I think it's the 6th, in 2021. Those people are passing petitions now. They have to petition to get on the ballot. So if you want to be active in local politics, I mean really local, in your town or unincorporated area in your township, now is the time that, as far as COVID permits, you can help pass petitions. You can help raise money to get good candidates on the ballot. Don't let the other controversies steer you away from local office. They are really important. They are the offices that are closest to us. They determine whether or not our garbage gets picked up, whether or not we have clean water, whether or not a lot of things go on. Library boards, park boards, school boards, they're all on the ballot. Township boards, they are all on the ballot next April, and people are passing petitions now. If you can, if COVID permits, volunteer to be an election judge, a Republican judge, a Democratic judge, whatever, because on election day, all of us old fogies are likely to stay away, and they badly need election judges. So if you can volunteer, go to your Democratic committeeman, your Republican committeeman, go to the Cook County clerk and volunteer to be an election judge. Learn more about how the processes work so that you can educate others. These things are complicated. The state, the Constitution requires, and the 20th Amendment requires, that the states report to the Electoral College by December 8th. The 538 members of the Electoral College vote between December 14th and December 23rd. December 8th is pretty much the drop dead date for litigation. And that's what happened in Florida, December 11 of the year 2000, when the Supreme Court said, you're done counting, the Florida vote stays as it is. And that was a 5-4 decision, and it decided that George Bush, rather than Al Gore, should be president. Hey, this is important stuff. Now, the 20th Amendment and the Constitution require that on January 20, the current president's term ends and the new president's term begins. I don't know what's going to happen. There may be controversy. Standing and looking at it right now, I think there is going to be controversy, but who knows what might happen. One side may beat the other overwhelmingly, and there won't be a contested election. But that's not what it looks like. So the term of the president ends on January 20. There is credible evidence that Russia and China and Iran are trying to influence our election. There is credible evidence that there are vote suppression schemes that are going throughout the country, voter registration purges, erecting barriers to voter registration. There are lots of other controversies, so watch carefully, study up. As members of the league, you're going to be relied on by people to advise them about these controversies. Now, what happens in a contested election? There is no federal contested election. There are 50 states, 50 states where there might be contests, but those will play out in every individual state. And that's where the action is going to be. Now, that's what the system is now. Study up on it. If you think the system is bad, there are changes that could be made. House Bill number 1, which sets a whole bunch of federal standards for state elections, prevents discrimination, and so forth. It was passed overwhelmingly by the House, and it can't get called for a vote in the Senate. The Supreme Court said that the 1964 Federal Civil Rights Act, requiring pre-clearance for states that had previously had problems and allegations of discrimination, that they'd have to get the Justice Department's okay. And the Supreme Court said Congress didn't have enough evidence when they enacted that, and the Supreme Court cut it out. We could have a new Civil Rights Act if people think they need it. And then there's really political things you could do. Flip the Senate, flip the House, lots of different things that could happen. The Supreme Court could be restructured. There are lots of things that could happen, so read up on it, decide what your take is on it. And in the outline, then, we have resources for further study. But I have run my mouth now for 48 minutes, and it's about time I took a sip of water to clear my froggy throat, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Rich, thank you so much. What a great presentation. Lots of important information here. And I know we had one question that I was able to answer already, and that is it too late to be an election judge? Absolutely not. And so I've given them the link for where they can go to be an election judge. And really, who do you think we should really be encouraging to go and be election judges?
Well, we know what COVID is like today.
Yeah.
We know that there are risks today. We know that there are reasons why we wear a mask. Wearing a mask is not a political statement, it's an IQ test.
Yeah.
And so we know what COVID is like today. It is very possible that it's going to be worse going into the fall when people have to stay inside. They are closer to each other. There is flu season. I've got my flu shot. Everybody should get your flu shot. But the flu shot doesn't protect against every strain of flu. So flu can happen, and then COVID, which is opportunistic, can take over. We could have a second wave of COVID. So we don't know for sure what it's going to be like on election day, except we know pretty much that there won't be a vaccine available. The head of the CDC testified to that effect yesterday. It looks like the vaccine will come. If it comes, it'll be in 2021 and probably near the end. So people who are young, people who are strong, people who can protect themselves, please volunteer to be an election judge. We can use youth as young as age 16 for some jobs, but everybody who is 18 and over can be an election judge. You go through training, you earn a measly $200 a day for 5 a.m. to at least 8 p.m. and sometimes 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. But anybody could be an election judge if you're a registered voter. So I encourage that.
Great. And we are doing that too. We have a great relationship with High School District 214. And so we are doing what we can to get the word out to students to, I mean, you and I, maybe $200 is not, a big deal, but I think my son upstairs, he's all over the $200.
Sure.
So anyway, so thank you for that. Now, so I just want to clarify that if I mail in my ballot today, it doesn't get counted until November 3rd, correct?
Well, yes, and you can't even mail it in today because you can't even get it
right.
until it's mailed out on September 24th. So whenever you mail it in, they have to qualify it in 2 days. They have to say that either this person is entitled to vote or not. The signature matches or it doesn't. There's a postmark or a date or there isn't. And then it gets qualified. And then it goes into a bin. At 7 o'clock on November 3rd, they put it in this giant machine that slits the top of the envelope, and people open the ballots and they run them through electronic counting machines. The ballot has barcodes on it, not to identify the individual, but identify the ballot style. So whether you vote in this school board or that school board district or judicial districts or whatever, there is a barcode on that, but it's all done electronically. It does not identify individuals. We have a devil of a time if we have a recount case trying to disqualify people who voted absentee or by mail. So it will not be counted until after 7 o'clock on election day. And the judges of election downtown, there will be dozens of boards of election judges who will do that counting downtown, but they're going to quit about midnight and they're going to come back again at 9 o'clock the next morning and they're going to count some more, and ballots float in. Ballots come from overseas. They come from the State Department, voted at embassies. They, the post office says that if you allow 7 days before the election, you put it in the mail 7 days before the election, it will be delivered by November 3. But you don't need to wait. You don't need to mail it back. You can put it in a drop box. COVID's not a problem. Drive by a drop box, stick it in. You don't need to be near anybody.
And so is it your professional opinion that we will not have official results until sometime mid-November?
Oh, absolutely. Without question, we will not. And in fact, there is a date. I frankly don't remember what it is right now, something like November 21st or something like that, that all election boards are required to certify. And if something unusual happens, they might even go to court to try to extend it for some reason. But by Illinois law, ballots that are postmarked by November, on or before November 3, must be counted whenever they arrive, as long as that is before 14 days after the election, which is the 18th.
All right.
So we will not be sure. Now, always in the past, and people have been voting more and more and more in Illinois by mail. Always in the past, the elections have been pretty clear on election evening, and 2 days out, you can pretty much rely on those results. But the results will change bit by bit. It usually changes in the proportion that it's already been. So you don't really expect one party to hugely gain and another party not to. However, if it really is true that Republicans will vote at the polling place and Democrats will vote by mail, then, we may have this blue shift. We don't know what's going to happen. Election officials have a prayer. Please, God, don't let it be close. And that is important so that there isn't controversy. Now, I kind of like controversy because I get hired to do recounts, but it's not a good thing, and it's very expensive. Recounts are more expensive than the election campaigns were originally. So nobody wants a recount except recount lawyers.
So we've got a question here about do I understand that you represented Kanye West?
No.
No, okay.
I am filing later on tonight a complaint against Kanye West for failing to report all of his campaign contributions, as was shown in a New York Times article yesterday. The complaint isn't on file yet because I'm waiting for one of my complainants to give me a notarized statement, but I will be filing that. I've had dealings with Kanye West before, but I am against him this time.
So what do you think is sort of an interesting, what do you think how do you think his candidacy is going to affect this election?
Well, I think it's very clear that he's a sham candidate. He hasn't been campaigning. He doesn't have a platform. His party is called the Birthday Party. All of his money that he has reported comes from himself or clearly Trump-oriented funds, and all of the lawyers that are helping him get on the ballot are lawyers who are either officers of the Republican Party or Trump advocates. We have a sham candidate, and sham candidates are not unusual. Unfortunately, they are designed to draw a certain ethnicity or something away from the race, and therefore change the result. Mr. West has got a right to run.
Yes.
But he also has a right to stand and be exposed for where his money comes from and what the effect of his campaigning will be.
So very interesting. So we just want to confirm the date that people can start filing if they want to run locally as September 22nd.
That's not a filing date. That is the first day to pass petitions as an independent. The first day to pass petitions as a Democrat, Republican, or established local party was August 25th. So I have clients who are doing both, running as independents, new parties, and also as Democrats and as members of a local party. That's going on right now.
Okay. So that's something that I believe our league needs to do much better, is try to get people, even though we're nonpartisan, we've never endorsed a single candidate or a party in our 100-year history, but I do think that our democracy relies on contested elections. And so we, as we continue to grow and work to serve our communities, that is one thing that I feel very strongly about, is that we need to really encourage more people to run for these local offices.
And there are loads of local offices.
Yes.
There are library boards, there are park boards, there are school boards, there are township boards, and there are municipalities. Loads of offices. And they are frequently uncontested because people don't pass through the barriers to entry. People don't collect petitions. People don't get good advice. People don't, I always think people ought to hire a lawyer, but
well,
that is expensive, but it is also a way to be sure you're doing it right, and to be sure when you ask your friends and neighbors to support you, that you are for sure going to get on the ballot. Because we have a blood sport in the state of Illinois called objections, and candidates are tossed off the ballot for failing to number their pages, failing to bind their pages firmly. They come in with just a loose stack and they dump them down, and papers go flying everywhere. That's not valid. You can't get on the ballot that way. Now, these barriers to entry may be bad, but it's been set by the legislature. The legislators themselves were elected by this methodology. So why should they create a system that allows people to remove them from office?
Yeah.
It isn't going to happen.
Mhm.
And so people need to know how to get beyond these barriers to entry so that we can really have contested elections, that we can have incumbents compared to their record. We can have people challenge them saying they will provide a different program. Most Illinois elections are uncontested.
Mhm. So one of our board members attended a program that Karen Yarborough put on for local leagues. And she said that at the Karen Yarborough at this town hall said that Cook County will be counting ballots as they come in. They just won't publish anything until 7 a.m. November the 3rd.
I hope that's legal, and I hope it's true, but that is certainly the case with early voting, that will be done on electronic machine, direct entry machines. And that goes into the computer mainframe. And at 7 o'clock on November 3, those are the first votes you see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if she is able to figure out a way to legally count ballots and suppress the results until election day, I think that's just fine.
Right. And then should we be concerned that our voting machines are connected to cellular modems? You know, it's so easy for all of this technology. It seems like it's easy to hack.
Yeah, in theory, it seems like it's easy to hack, but there are checks and balances here. And so in practicality, it does not happen. If it did happen, what happens when the results are, you see, there's two kinds of results from a polling place. There is an electronic record of what happened at the direct entry machines, you know, the ones that look like a cash station. And there are electronic results from the machine that is in the ballot box, and the voter will actually push his own ballot into that machine, and that machine counts. And yes, indeed, as soon as the judges can do it, after the last voter votes, after 7 p.m., and the last person in line at 7 p.m. gets to vote. So it's a few minutes later. The cellular, the results are sent by cellular transmission. However, that memory from the DRE machines and from the paper ballot counting machines, they are taken to a receiving station, and they feed them in by a direct link downtown, and there is a check as to what those results are. And if there is a difference between results, that's where all of us lawyers pounce in case it might make a difference. But it almost never happens.
Got you. Well, I think that looks like all the questions that we have for you tonight. I put in the chat your website if anybody is interested to contact you, especially if they're thinking about running for office. I know I see a couple of names here on our guest list that I would like to see run for office. And also remember all the information that you need from getting a super cute vote mask to finding out where to drop off your ballot or where your early voting location is, all of that, or how you even become an election judge. We have those links right on the front of our website at www.lwvah.org. So our league we are 100% volunteer. We don't have any paid people. These programs we offer to the public for free, but they're not necessarily free for us to put on. So if you are at any way inclined, I urge you to go to our website and make a donation to help us continue serving our communities and the students of all of our school districts. So that's it. Thank you so much. Any last words, Rich?
Everybody, make sure you vote for yourself, and then make sure you get other people to vote.
That's right. Tell 10 friends. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to our ASL interpreter, Stacy Shine Stapleton. We are so lucky to have her professional services as part of our league. And we love that she is helping us with this. Thank you. All right. We're going to end now. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.